Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. And first of all, I want to thank everyone for joining me on this Wednesday afternoon before the Thanksgiving holiday. I do have a couple of announcements. First of all, Bookmap deals are coming, and I expect deals to be announced on Friday. So I don't have any details yet about that. I'm sorry. But take a look at the deals channel of Bookmap Discord as well as the Bookmap YouTube page, Bookmap page, web page. And then the next announcement, the Pro Trader webinar series, the next one begins this Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and continues on through next week. All right, here, let's move on. Here's the key tenets to my approach to trading. And for those of you who've seen my webinar before, please bear with me. I want to make sure everyone understands what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. Hey, give me just a moment. I want to make sure everyone understands my approach to trading. So here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price. M&E stocks and futures, like the S&P 500 equity index futures and the Magnificent Seven stocks. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index. SPY is the ETF version of that index. And the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their dealt exposure with ES futures. And you'll notice I do focus my attention on SPX and SPY levels, and I have those marked in the ES chart that we'll see in just a minute. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index, and the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their dealt exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading. The first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow on Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. And we will be going through both of these steps today. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And here's my agenda for today. Wednesday, November 26th. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, and events for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll get to the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with news items. And while we're doing that, let's just take a look at the S&P 500 ES futures and Bookmap. So this morning there were a couple of data releases, and I believe this was most likely delayed data. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Probably jobless claims was up to date, but that came in less than expected and less than the previous number, indicating a little bit stronger than expected jobs market. Then the durable goods orders came out. That was equal to the expected number, but less than the previous number. And the PCE data was supposed to be released today, and it looks like that has been pushed back to next Friday. And so that will come out on next Friday along with the jobs report, and that will be before the FOMC meeting the week after next. All right, so that is the data for today, and that was at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Really did not have much of an impact on the market. And then, of course, tomorrow is the Thanksgiving holiday, U.S. holiday, and then Friday the U.S. markets are closed early. So closed all day tomorrow, and then U.S. markets closed early on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, let's move on to positional analysis now. This is the ES futures of Bookmap. And as I mentioned before, I focus on SPX and SPY levels. And let me point out some key levels. And first of all, here is the SPX 6800 level. That is also the call wall. So that level, the call wall, we'll talk about that in just a minute, did move down from yesterday. Now at 6800. Here's the SPY 680 call wall. That level also moved down from yesterday. And then up above that, the SPX 6825. That's a resistance level. And then I also have key ES levels on this chart. And there it is, the ES upper daily expected move. And we'll take a look at the expected moves for SPX in just a minute. And note, ES is trading well above its upper daily expected move. All right, let's step back, take a look at a higher time frame. Let's go to the underlying index, SPX, and this is a 30-day 1-hour chart. I'm sorry, it is a 1-year 1-day chart for SPX, and the rally that began in April is still intact, although recently it's been pretty choppy, more consolidation rather than continuation of the uptrend. So let's take a look at some of this recent chop. So this is the October 10th tariff tantrum, and SPX recovered up to a high of 69.20, then trended back down. And then this is the last week, the NVIDIA earnings, AI puke, and then a recovery after that, and now SPX trading up above that upper level of that day on Thursday. So let's take a closer look at that with our now 30-day 1-hour chart. Focusing on the most recent price action, there's that 69.20 high that I mentioned, and then a downtrend, and then this is the NVIDIA earnings and the AI puke. Note, SPX did trade down below the lows of the 1010 tariff tantrum and now has recovered. And I've talked about this zone right here. I've talked about this zone, this 6750 to 6770 support and resistance zone. And most recently, that was resistance on that last Thursday. And then yesterday, SPX closed just at the upper end of that range, and today gapped up above that level, and so far is trading above that zone. All right, let's take a look at some of the levels on this chart. And there's some key levels SPX is trading up above. So let's focus on the expected moves first. Dashed purple lines are showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. Note SPX is trading up above the upper weekly expected move. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market. That's based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. And I do post the expected moves for SPX, ES, and NQ every day the day before in the Options-Doug chat channel and Bookmap Discord. And note the daily expected moves, again, do change every day, and they can move above or below the weekly expected moves. And the case today is the upper daily expected move is up above the upper weekly expected move. All right, so that's the expected moves. And again, SPX trading up above the upper daily expected move. Now let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. And let me zoom in a bit. Since we no longer need to look at the no longer need to look at the 6,000 level. So let's zoom in and we'll take a look at closer look at the more important levels here. All right, so the absolute gamma strike has moved up. We'll get to that in just a minute. So let's go from low to high. So far, the lowest level, and these are the key daily levels, the put wall, 6,500. That's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support and certainly not in play for today. Next level up is the volatility trigger at 6730. That is Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And this is based on Spotgamma's older total open interest model. We'll take a look at a view of gamma based on their newer synthetic open interest model in just a couple of minutes. And note the volatility trigger did move higher from yesterday. And just an interesting note about the some of the levels. So typically the volatility trigger for all the index components is the most volatile. It changes almost every day. So yesterday the volatility triggers for SPX, SPY, NDX, QQQ, RUT, and IWM all shifted higher. And that is the case for today as well. They all six shifted higher. All right, next level up is the call wall, now at 6,800. And that's a strike with large net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And note that level did move down from 7,000 yesterday down to 6,800 today. And again, SPX is trading up above the call wall. So that's the level that is expected to act as resistance. And then finally, the absolute gamma strike has moved back up to 7,000. And that's right here. You can't see the label, but it's at 7,000. That's a strike with largest absolute positive and negative gamma. So again, the volatility trigger absolute gamma strike moved higher, and the call wall moved lower. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart. All right, I'll zoom in just a second, but this is showing the low from last Friday. So this is the Thursday NVIDIA earnings AI puke. and made a SPX made a low on Friday, and it looks like the rally that began on Friday is pretty much intact now with some consolidation after a pretty strong move higher of almost 300 points higher. All right, let's zoom in on this a little bit. All right, so key levels in play. Upper daily expected move, and then the call wall below that. And SPX, again, trading above both of those levels. All right, let's wrap up the S&P 500 index levels by taking a look at SPY. Then we'll get back to Bookmap. Go to SPY. Dark shaded areas showing regular trading hours. So this is a rally continuation from yesterday, and then consolidation today. And again, let's zoom in on this just a bit. Key levels, call wall at 680 for SPY. So it looks like SPY is trading up and down around that level. All right, back to Bookmap. And we'll talk about setups in just a minute. All right, so key levels that I mentioned, 6,800 call wall, SPY 680 call wall. So those are the key levels. And again, we'll talk about setups in just a couple of minutes. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. Strong day in NASDAQ today. Pretty similar chart pattern. Bullish opening drive, then a reversal, and then a reversal higher again. Reversal to highs of the day a little bit later. So let's take a look at the underlying index charts first, so we can isolate the QQQ levels and the NDX levels. Then we'll come back to this chart. So let's go first take a look at QQQ. And by the way, for SPY, the volatility trigger and put wall shifted higher, and again, the call wall shifted lower. And here's NASDAQ. Let's zoom in on this. So the 610 call wall is down below. So QQQ trading well above its call wall. And that level did shift down from yesterday, just like SPX and SPY. And the only level in play really is the 615 large gamma 3 level. Let's take a look at NDX. For NDX, I believe all but one level are all down below. And actually the call wall is the lowest level. And that just is an indication of the lack of liquidity in the NDX. So the only NDX level is this large gamma 4 level that did act as resistance just after the open. And again, all the other levels down below. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so there's that 25,200 level. And then the QQQ 615 level. And by the way, there is a difference in price between ES and SPX and NQ and NDX. Let's go back. Let's take a quick look at the ES chart. And today that offset is somewhere between 14 and 15. So I'm using 15. So I'm showing SPX 6800 at ES 6815. And the NQ to NDX offset is about 60 points. So I'm showing NDX 25,200 at NQ 25,260. And I do post those index relationships every day in the Options-Jug chat channel on Bookmap Discord. All right, this is the levels in play. And let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at Gamma. Then we'll get to get to some setups in the live market. All right, so as I mentioned before, we're going to take a look at a more current view of Gamma, and this is the trace Gamma heat map. And this is showing almost all red. Red indicates negative Gamma. Remember, in negative Gamma, we're looking for higher volatility, faster movement. Not necessarily the case today, right now, but it was earlier today. Wide range of movement, higher volatility in negative Gamma, red shading, and then blue shading is indicating positive Gamma. Let's zoom in just one notch here. So there was a little bit of positive Gamma up above, but right now SPX trading in this bright red negative Gamma. So in this environment, we're looking for more volatility again, wider range of movement. All right, that's the positional analysis. And now let's move on to execution. Let's take a look at some setups. And as always, I'm going to start with the S&P 500, and I'm going to take a look and see what options traders have been doing today. So this is the hero signal, hedging impact real-time options. This is available to Spotgamma subscribers. And by the way, I believe there is a pretty good Black Friday sale going on at spotgamma.com for those of you. I believe people had asked earlier, maybe the last webinar. So my understanding is there is a Black Friday sale going on for Spotgamma. And then for Bookmap, again, the Black Friday sale coming up. Watch for more information later on this week. All right, so again, this is the Spotgamma Hero indicator. Hero stands for Hedging Impact of Real-Time Options. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. And we've already talked about a couple of those. That is SPX and SPY, and the other two are ES and XSP. The white line is showing price for SPX, and the purple line is the hero signal. So again, that's showing options trades and market maker hedging activity. And a rising hero signal indicates traders are taking positive delta options positions. They are buying calls and or selling puts. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to buy ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. And then a falling hero signal indicates traders are taking negative delta options positions. They are buying puts and or selling calls. Again, market makers take the opposite side of the trades, and they have to hedge their delta exposure by selling ES futures. All right, so let's zoom in on this. So what this is showing, first of all, what I call a bullish opening drive. Traders taking positive delta positions up until about 950. And then they quickly reverse. So a bullish opening drive, then a call peak reversal, or a peak reversal, and then finally that resolves into a kind of the main move of the day, which was up. And we'll take a look at another hero signal in just a moment. All right, so let's shift to puts and calls so we can get a better idea of what traders are doing. And we'll have to jump back. We'll take a look at that signal in just a minute. All right, so earlier today, I thought the index signal provided more clarity. And as it turns out, that is usually the case. The index signal, I think, shows it's a little bit more noisy than the next signal that we'll take a look at, and provides a little bit more clarity at the turning points. So right here, right around 9:45, this flow alert comes in, signals significant options activity and a potential for a reversal in hedging flow from positive delta to negative delta. That's exactly what happened 5 minutes later. And the hedging flow shifted to negative delta, and SPX and, of course, ES and SPY all reverse lower. Let's take a look at the other signal available for the S&P 500. This is the S&P 500 equity signal. And what this is showing is options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. And we'll see in a minute, this is largely the Mag 7 plus 493. So not so clear this morning. This is showing initially traders were buying some puts, selling calls. Looks like they chased price higher and then reversed again. And from then on, from around 9:50 on, the signal was a little bit more in sync with price. And let's zoom out so you can see overall for today, this is providing more clarity about the general trend of the day. And it's showing that traders have been buying calls and selling puts in the S&P 500 stocks. When traders buy calls, sell puts, market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they hedge their delta exposure by buying stock, buying the underlying stock. All right, back to the index signal here. And let's go take a look at Bookmap now. So we know, and let's zoom in on this morning setup. So we know there was a bullish opening drive, traders buying calls and selling puts in the index components. And this is the cash open right here at 9:30. The volume dots in Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. And magenta dots indicate more sellers than buyers. So you can see the aggressive buyers really started to come in before, right after 9:15, really. That's what we're showing here. And then it just accelerated at the open as more buyers came in. This is, again, ES Futures and Bookmap. And as ES approached its upper daily expected move, same for SPX. I do calculate those separately or independently. You can see the aggressive sellers started to come in. The shift to magenta volume dots, and they take price right back down to right around the SPY 677 level. Then the call buyers, put sellers in the equities, S&P 500 equities, came into play, and price reversed higher. And again, some aggressive buyers started to come in. And really the cumulative volume delta line really never shifted. It just flattened down, never shifted negative, and then continued to move up. So aggressive buyers as well as traders taking positive delta positions, and eventually in the index components as well as the S&P 500 equities. Note, this is a pretty typical, and has certainly been this week, large traders fading the move with iceberg orders. That's shown by the falling light blue line. And then buy stop orders have been helping to fuel this move higher. right, so let's zoom in just a little bit. Take a look at the heat map and Bookmap. And you can see the limit sell orders in the order book started to come in. That's shown by the heat map and Bookmap. That's a history of limit orders in the order book. Also, more magenta volume dots coming in. Some angry sellers there, large magenta volume dots as traders start selling ES futures. No cumulative volume delta, dark blue line shifts sharply lower. And then the sell stops, or the stop orders, that stops rising and starts to move lower. But mainly aggressive sellers coming in at that point. And then pretty choppy price action after that. Let's go back. Let's see, take a look at here. Let's see what options traders have been doing in the afternoon. All right, so we're on the index signal. Sharp move higher. And another peak, just like this peak. In this case, it's leading to more consolidation. So the call buyers abruptly take the foot off the gas. Now the call hero signal is pretty flat. Put hero signal shifting down a little bit. And now the S&P 500 is consolidating. And let's go to the equity signal. So the call buyers in equities, looks like they finally taken the foot off the gas, somewhere between 1 and 115, as well as the put sellers. All right, so options traders now have taken the foot off the gas, so the easy money for today has already been made in the S&P 500, and now pretty choppy. Or let's take a look at NASDAQ. Any questions about the S&P 500? All right, NASDAQ, similar chart. And let's take a look at the hero signals for NASDAQ. I'm going to shift to the total signal here. Let's go to NASDAQ. And pretty choppy this morning. Actually, let me zoom in on this just a little bit. Also, overall, pretty flat up until about 10:30. Then the hero signal really broke out and started to rise. So that's the NASDAQ signal. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the NASDAQ index components. We've already taken a look at those, QQQ and NDX. So net for the day, bullish. Very nice peak pattern here, reversal and consolidation. Whoops. All right, so let's take a look at the other signal available for the NASDAQ. That's the MAG 7 signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. And note these stocks do make up a very large component of the NASDAQ 100, as well as the S&P 500. All right, so overall, moving down up until about 10 a.m. and starts to reverse higher up to about 105, and then now moving down a little bit, some consolidation now. Let's shift back to puts and calls. So net for the day, traders are buying calls and selling puts in the Mag 7 stocks. And again, that has slowed down. So this reversal right around 10 a.m. set up a nice long. It took almost a half an hour for this to really play out. Let's check that 10 a.m. reversal in the NASDAQ signal again. So that's when the call buyers really came in, about 10 a.m. in the NASDAQ index components. All right, so let's go to Bookmap so we know the main reversal. Started at 10, did a retest just before 10:30. So let's zoom in on that. So there's that first move down right at 10 a.m. Then a retest. And it looks like a little bit higher, right around 25,150. And NASDAQ rallied up 200 points pretty quickly. Right back to real time now. So NASDAQ consolidating, grinding grinding a little bit lower. All right, any questions about the indexes? All right, let's take a look at some stocks. And, I just realized I'm going to look at the same stocks that I looked at on Monday. And I guess these stocks are in play. So first of all, let's take a look at Google. So Google has been very strong recently, and traders are enthusiastic about the results of their Gemini 3 model, OpenAI model, or AI model, and now Google consolidating some of those recent gains as it has run into positive gamma. And let me check. And this was noted in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note. And positive gamma zone between around 310 and 335. So looking for some consolidation in that zone in the positive gamma. All right, so zoom in on this just a little bit. See, we can see a bearish opening drive here. So Google had already been trending down before the cash open. And then after the cash open, there was a bearish opening drive. So let's see what traders are doing. Let's go to Google. Zoom in on this a bit. A little bit of a choppy hero signal, but a nice peak pattern. Mainly a call peak pattern just after the open. Blue line showing traders were buying puts. And then right around 9:35, they started selling calls. And price reversed lower until the call sellers and put buyers took the foot off the gas right around 10:25. And some call buyers came in. Whoops, sorry about that. So right now, traders continue to buy calls and buy puts. And note this number is pretty small, not even a million. Delta notional for calls at 684K versus put buyers at minus 91 million. So really it's the put buyers dominating price action on the option side. And let's go to Bookmap. Overall cumulative volume delta is negative for the day, and it is definitely obscured by the opening print here. That was just above 320. And that big drop in cumulative volume delta. All right, so that's Google. Bearish opening drive, attempted recovery, and now consolidation. All right, next stock, Meta. Meta's been beaten up quite a bit recently and has been attempting to recover. So let's see what options traders are doing in Meta. We'll zoom in on this in just a moment. Just want to point out the overall picture here. Very bearish opening drive. Call sellers came in just after the open. Flow alert signals significant options activity and get your attention to this flush down, bearish opening drive, and then so bearish opening drive, traders started selling calls. And then just before 10:15, it looks like some large block orders came in. These are large institutional orders as Meta started to move higher. So some, again, large block orders helping to move Meta higher. So a brief bearish opening drive and then Meta recovering. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. Overall, though, a pretty choppy day. Zoom in just a bit. Bearish opening drive. Deep pullbacks for short entries. And then the reversal. And then watching Hero, you can see those large block orders coming in. And you definitely want to follow that and be long. And then consolidation after that. And now grinding back down and definitely below the opening print. Shown by that large green volume dot on the left. All right, next stock, Tesla. All right, Tesla, bearish opening drive. Then making a nice recovery. Let's see what options traders have been doing in Tesla. Zoom in on this just a bit. So traders start selling calls about 1 minute after the open. Price breaks down below the 420 key gamma strike. This is up a nice pullback for a short. And consolidation, and then starting right around 10:45, just a minute or two after, Tesla starts to recover as traders start selling puts and buying calls. And that continues, and Tesla continues to recover. So bearish opening drive and then a recovery. And let's go back to Bookmap. And you can see from pretty much from the open, cumulative volume delta has been rising, indicating more aggressive buyers than sellers. And Tesla has set up some very nice pullback entries for long in this uptrend. Let's check the market pulse price change indicator and see if that helps to identify those deeper pullbacks that made very good long entries. It'll take a moment for this to load. So while that's loading, let's take a look. Let's go back to Bookmap. Hero, I'm sorry. And we can see net for the day. Traders have been selling puts and buying calls. That's shown by the positive delta notional. And most recently, the call buyers continue their drive price higher. All right, back to Bookmap. Still waiting on the market pulse price change. So it is identifying a little bit more than the deepest pullback entries, but those deep pullback entries are definitely marked with this market pulse price change. I like to look at the extremes. So on the move down, let me zoom in on this. So on the move down, here's that big pullback entry. Looks like the market pulse price change was actually a little bit of a leading indicator. But that would have gotten you the big part of the move there. All right, let's move on now. Consolidation. Then Tesla starts to move higher. So now we're looking for the green, the red extremes. First really deep pullback, second really deep pullback, and again there are others marked with the market pulse price change. To the pullback, some support down under limit buy orders in the order book came in just before the reversal. Looks like those orders were not consumed. Price did not quite make it down to 419. Reversed higher. Cumulative volume delta continues to rise. Looking for the deeper pullbacks. And Tesla making its way back up to 425, right around the highs of the day. All right, next stock, Broadcom. Broadcom still very strong. It has been strong recently. And Broadcom, so there's been news about some other hyperscalers using Google chips, which are actually Broadcom chips. So this Google Broadcom juggernaut has been moving higher, quite a bit higher. I think the reports of Meta plans to use the Google Broadcom TPUs, tensor processing units. All right, so that is Broadcom, much stronger than NVIDIA recently. So let's take a look. Rising cumulative volume delta from the open. Very large, bullish opening print here. Large green volume dot. Price pulls back right to VWAP. Reverses higher. Cumulative volume delta rising. You can see a lot of green volume dots. Pullback entries. All right, let's All right, next, primary targets up above. Limit sell orders at 399 and 400. So it looks like the traders at 399 are trying to front run the traders at 400 to sell Broadcom. And now I can see some larger magenta volume dots coming in, some sellers coming in. We'll see what options traders have been doing. Go to Broadcom. And it's call buyers primarily driving price higher. Again, remember, when traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock that has to build exposure. And there's that 400 level. That is the call wall. And that would definitely be the target if Broadcom continues to move higher. That may not be the case today. They may have to wait until Friday for that to happen. Let's zoom in on this just a bit. All right, so very nice rally in Broadcom stock, one of the stocks of the day. So this was pretty choppy for about the first 15 minutes. And traders started selling puts. Then a few minutes later, buying calls. Broadcom moved higher, took the foot off the gas, consolidation. Call buyers came in again, and Broadcom continued to move higher. And then finally taking the foot off the gas, maybe for the afternoon, right around 12:45. So expect Broadcom to consolidate unless some call buyers really come in. So let's go back to Bookmap. So remember, the reversal happened right around 9:45. And there it is right there. Trend break, reversal at VWAP, that's this light blue line here. And then heading up toward the key liquidity targets. Here primarily the zeros and the fives. Those are limit sell orders in the order book. At 390 they were consumed. At 395 they were consumed. And at 399 they were not consumed. And then the highest liquidity in the order book as at 400. All right, that's Broadcom. All right, last stock I wanted to take a look at. And remember, yeah, 400 is the call wall. Last stock, Robinhood, been beaten down pretty significantly lately, and now traders are coming back in. There was something about, of course, Robinhood is really focused on kind of cutting edge trading, prediction markets, crypto, and then news about one of these new ventures. I need to go back and check on that. But anyway, very bullish opening drive. Nice rally. Flow alert comes in just after the open, get your attention. Sharp move higher. Call buyers take the foot off the gas. Robinhood consolidates. And then at 10:10, traders start buying calls again, resume buying calls, selling puts. Robinhood moves higher. So the main pullback for if you missed this bullish opening drive was just after 10 a.m. Let's go to Bookmap. Go to Robinhood. A lot of aggressive buyers. You can see all the green volume dots coming in right at the open. Very bullish. Traders buying calls, buying stock. They take the foot off the gas. This pullback, and then the call bars start to come in again, and Robinhood continues to move higher. After quite a bit of weakness recently. So the dip buyers are definitely coming in Robinhood. All right, those are the stocks that I had. Does anyone have any questions? Any stocks you want me to take a look at? All right, let's rotate back to the S&P 500. And now continues to chop, but it looks like ES making a series of higher lows, trying to get back to the highs of the day. Let's see what options traders are doing. Go to Hero. I'm going to shift back to the total signal. We'll go to S&P 500. All right, so the S&P 500 index Hero signal has shifted higher. So we're looking for a price to move higher, perhaps exceeding the highs of the day. All right, back to all right, ES heading back up toward highs of the day. Let's check, let's go back, check trace. Still in very negative gamma. Heading up toward the Spotgamma implied one-day move high. And let's check charm pressure. And this is showing buying support, selling pressure due to time decay. And we're looking for obvious pinning zones at the end of the day. The first and most obvious, the closest, is 68.20. So that would be right around ES 68.35, showing buying support below, red selling pressure up above. So the hero signal would have to turn down for S&P 500 to reach that level. It's not far. SPX is only trading, SPX only trading right around 68.26. So that net level down is just down 6 points. Back to gamma. All right, back to Bookmap. So ES continues to grind higher. Let's see where on Bookmap see a potential target. So we know the return pressure, it's at SPX 68.25 or ES 68.35. So that would be right about here. A potential pin target according to Trace. And let's see what levels are in play. All right, so up above, 2 SPX levels. That's the 68.47 combo 4 and 68.50. That was noted as resistance in the Spotgamma AM founder's note. But it's really been pretty choppy since about 11:45. Well, I would say somewhat, mostly of a downward bias, slightly downward bias. Let's check NASDAQ. All right, NASDAQ, pretty similar picture. Back to ES. All right, let's check Hero. All right, back to Hero. All right, the index Hero signal continues to move higher. I'd say pretty strongly higher. S&P 500 equities also moving higher. So I'm looking for, right now, looking for the S&P 500, whether that's ES, SPX, or SPY to move higher. All right, there are some limit sell orders just up above at 45 and 49, maybe something like that. A little bit at 50 as well. All right, last call for questions, comments. Anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, everyone, my time is up. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank you very much for watching. And I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving holiday. Remember, markets close tomorrow, U.S. markets, and then close early, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Everyone, again, have a great holiday. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on Monday. Thanks again. Bye.